racial discrimination, because I don't think there's any basis for socialization on the basis of race, that there's any difference in company on the basis of the color of a person's skin or ethnic background.
Did you know the Cosmos Club discriminated against women? What, didn't have any women?
I knew that it was a men's club, and what I was going to go on to say is that I don't consider that an invidious discrimination. I think there are a lot of other people who likewise do not consider it invidious discrimination. I realize there are those that disagree, that do not like organizations like the Knights of Columbus, or for that matter the Boy Scouts, and think that that should not be an all-male organization. I happened not to have felt that way, and thus was a member of the Cosmos Club. When I first joined it, Senator, was when I first came up to Washington to work in the executive branch. I lived in the club for about 6 months while my family was still in Charlottesville. One of the facilities of living there was that it was a men's club. Now, I understand there are people who feel differently about it. I am sensitive to their views. Towards the end of the period that I was membership of the club, that I was a member in the club, I was especially uncomfortable because I know that some of the judges on my court took the opposite view of whether there should be clubs of that sort. I happen to disagree. I'm no longer a member. That's all I can say.
I note you used a rather interesting story to illustrate one of your objections of affirmative action, and that's the story of Tonto and the Lone Ranger. In it, I think you have to tell the story with the Indian dialect of English. I won't read the whole story, but it's a cute story. But the English dialect of the Indian, I'm not quite so sure about. Everyone who knows you says that you are quite adept with the English language. The fact that you have exceptional verbal talent. How do you think the Indians of this country might feel about your reciting that story with some of the quotes?
Would you read the quote where I used
Yes. When John Minor Wisdom speaks of restorative justice, I'm reminded of the story about the Lone Ranger and his faithful Indian companion Tonto. If you recall the famous radio story, you know that Tonto never said much, but what he did say was, disguised beneath a Hollywood Indian dialect, wisdom of an absolutely Solomonic caliber. On one occasion, it seems that the Lone Ranger was galloping along with Tonto heading eastward when they saw coming towards them a large band of Mohawk Indians in full war dress. The Lone Ranger reins in his horse, turns to Tonto and asks, "Tonto, what should we do?" Tonto says, "Ugh, ride 'em west." So when they wheel around and gallop off to the west, suddenly they encounter a large band of Sioux heading straight toward them. The Lone Ranger asks Tonto, "What should we do?" Tonto says, "Ugh, ride 'em north." So they turn around and ride north, and sure enough, there's a whole tribe of Iroquois headed straight toward them. The ranger says, "Tonto, what should we do?" Tonto says, "Ugh, ride 'em south," which they do until they see a warpath of Apaches coming right for them. The Lone Ranger asks, "Tonto, what should we do?" Tonto says, "Ugh, what do you mean, we, white man?" And it's a rather cute story, but I think the use by you of a sort of a Indian dialect, I wonder if the Indians would feel offended by it.
I'm fully aware of that sensitivity, Senator, which is why when I began the story, I made it clear that Tonto's wisdom was always Solomonic, but it was disguised between what I referred to there as a Hollywood Indian dialect. That is a disparaging term. I'm fully aware that Indians don't talk that way. It's how Hollywood portrayed them. I thought I made it very clear in what I wrote that Indians don't talk that way, but that's the way Hollywood wrongfully portrays them. Now, if that is not enough of a disclaimer and the story has to be stricken from everyone's repertoire, I think that would be a great loss. And it doesn't work in non-Hollywood Indian. It really doesn't.
One more minute.
There's now a pending request for certain memoranda that we have worked out in connection with Justice Rehnquist. He waived any objection to our having that information. Do you have any objection to our obtaining information from the Justice Department concerning your efforts while you were there?
Personally, Senator, I have no personal objection to it. There's nothing I did at the Justice Department that was other than honorable. I'd be less than honest if I didn't say that having worked in the Office of Legal Counsel and defended its prerogatives for 3.5 years or so, I'm concerned about the institution, about the effect that such probing, or more specifically the awareness of the fact that whatever the head of the Office of Legal Counsel writes will henceforth, should he ever be subjected to questioning in connection with a confirmation, which is very likely because most heads of the Office of Legal Counsel, or many of them at least, go on to later government positions. I think it would be harmful to the office if it is known that everything he puts down on paper by way of advice to the Attorney General or to the agencies will be made public. I fear that it may make his advice less frank, less forthright than it otherwise would be. That's purely an institutional objection. It's up to the President to defend that institution. Personally, I'm not ashamed of anything I did while I was there.
And you have no personal objection?
I have no personal objection, Senator.
I have no further questions.
Thank you. Take recess, and the first, after the recess, James Senator from Illinois.
I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll take a recess now and go and vote.
I thought you were